Call your next witness.
Karen Shepard.
Come forward, please. When you get to the witness stand, remain standing. Raise your right hand and face the clerk.
I do.
Please be seated. State and spell your name for the record.
Karen Shepard, Sheppherd.
Thank you.
Okay. Scoot up close to that thing so we can all hear what you have to say. Thank you. You're employed by the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department.
Yes.
And how long have you been with the department?
For approximately 7.5 years.
And did you have any law enforcement experience before that?
No.
And what is your current assignment?
My current assignment is I'm a detective with the Special Operations Division. That started just this Monday. Before that, I was assigned to the Criminal Investigations Division.
And in connection with those responsibilities, were you assigned to perform some search responsibilities in connection with a search warrant executed on Neverland Valley Ranch on November 18, 2003?
Yes.
And specifically, do you recall about what time you got there?
It was early in the morning before the sun was out. We had a briefing in the Solvang area.
Okay. And you eventually went to the ranch?
Yes.
What responsibilities were you assigned at the ranch?
I was first assigned to search the main house, the master bedroom and master bathroom area.
And do you recall about what time it was that you started those responsibilities?
I believe. I don't know the exact time. I can estimate maybe 10 a.m. is when we started.
Now, in the course of your working and doing this search, what area were you searching?
I focused most of my searching in the master bathroom area.
Now, during the course of the time that you were there, did you see some items for evidence?
Yes.
And when you seized an item or items, what was the process you used in order to have them booked into evidence?
If I found an item that I thought was of interest, I would tell either the investigating officer or someone who was in charge. I would take the evidence, if it was something that they wanted, and I gave it to Detective Padilla, who was in charge of seizing and packaging the evidence.
And in some cases were the items photographed in their location?
Yes.
Alright, now, I'm going to show you some photographs and ask you some questions about those photographs. Off-the-record discussion held at council table. Alright, do you recognize the photograph, People's 59? It's 59, is it not?
Yes.
For identification that I placed in front of you.
Yes, I do recognize it.
And does it accurately depict the area that it purports to represent?
Yes.
Alright, move that it be admitted into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
I'm going to need it.
Yes, you are. Okay. Now, before we get to the overhead, I want to ask you a couple of other questions. I have a package that's been marked, Your Honor, as People's 569 for identification purposes. It's a brown bag. Has item number 301 at the top, and inside the bag are 5 DVDs. I'm withdrawing them from the bag, showing them to counsel, and they're marked 570 through 574 respectively. Detective Shepard, I've handed you the exhibit that's been marked as 569, which is the brown bag, and the 5 DVDs that are marked 70 through 74 respectively. Would you take the DVDs out of the bag and examine them, please? Do you recognize those?
Yes.
And do you recall where they were the first time that you saw them?
Yes. They were on top of the television. There's a television that's alongside the jacuzzi tub and they were stacked on top of the television.
And did you seize those items?
Yes.
And did you arrange to have them booked into evidence?
Yes.
And are those items in the same condition now as they were when you seized them?
Yes.
Move that they be admitted into evidence, Your Honor, 69 through 74.
They're admitted.
Now I'm going to put the overhead on for just a second. Okay. This is the photograph that you have just identified moments ago as People's 59, which is now in evidence. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Alright. I had you pick up a little laser pointer. And could you indicate to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the location of the items 570 through 574 at the time that you first saw them?
Right there on top of the TV.
Right on top of the TV. Okay. Now, at the time that you were out there that day, did you take any other items of evidence?
Yes.
What else did you take?
Can I use the laser pointer?
Sure. Absolutely. That's what I want you to do.
Okay. There was a magazine that contained adult material that I found within this stack of books and magazines. There was another magazine containing adult material which was inside of this metal briefcase. And I also found 3 books in this plastic bag that contained adult material.
Okay. Now, we're going to talk about those in a little bit more detail now, but I think we can turn the lights back on. Okay. I've handed you back the photograph that the jury just saw that was up on the board, People's 59. What I want you to do, there's a black pen right in front of you there, and I'm going to ask you to take the exhibit, People's 59, and I want you to draw a little circle around the area where you found the DVDs that are in People's 570 through 574, and right from the circle put a little line, 570 through 574.
Okay.
And would you put your initials by that, please? And what did you put?
KKS.
KKS.
Aha.
Okay. Off the record discussion held at council table. Okay. I think we're ready to go now. Alright. We have a brown paper bag which has been marked as People's 576 for identification purposes. Okay. I want to ask you to take a look at that bag, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about it and the contents. Alright. Do you recognize the items that were contained in the bag, 576?
Yes.
And when and where were those items the first time that you saw them?
They were inside the plastic bag near the bookcase.
And were you the one responsible for taking those and placing them into evidence, having them booked?
Yes.
Now, with regard to the items that you took out are what, 3 books?
3 books, yes.
And those books have individual numbers, is that correct?
Yes.
And with regard to item number 577, do you see that?
Yes.
Alright. Now, in front of you are some photographs. Can you mate up the photograph with the, I believe it's 297?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that photograph an accurate depiction of a book that you seized, which is marked as 577?
Yes.
Alright. Let's go to the next one, 578. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes.
That's one of the books you seized, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to 578, there's a photograph, 296.
Correct.
Is that photograph, 296, an accurate depiction of the book that you seized, 578?
Yes.
And with regard to the next item, which is 579.
Correct.
Do you see that?
Yes.
And 579, there's a photograph marked as 631.
Correct.
Is that an accurate depiction of the front cover of the item 579?
Yes.
Alright. Now, with regard to the items 577, 78 and 79. These are the items that you seized and then had booked into evidence, is that correct?
Yes.
And are they in the same condition now as they were at the time you seized them and had them booked?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move 576 through 579 be admitted into evidence.
All right. They're admitted.
And I request that photograph 297, 296 and 631 be admitted into evidence.
They're admitted.
Mr. Zonin thinks I neglected 578. If I did, I'm sorry. It should be 576, 77, 78, 79.
That's what I thought you had requested admission of. I admitted those.
Thank you. With regard to the exhibits, 577 through 79, you have the photograph in front of you, People's 59.
Yes.
And could you indicate to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, by placing on that exhibit, the location of the area, the approximate location of where you seized the items 577, 578 and 579?
With a black marker.
Please. If you would.
Okay.
Alright. Mr. Zonin. We're going to need the lights, Your Honor. Now, on the board is the exhibit marked as People's 296 that's in evidence. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And that's the cover. That's the photograph that you indicated reflects the cover of that particular item that you seized.
Yes.
And by that particular item that you seized, I'm talking about 578.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. And 297, the photograph of 297 reflects the front cover of item 577. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And those were all seized in that plastic bag.
Yes.
And the last one, which is 631, do you recognize that?
Yes.
Was that also in the plastic bag?
Yes.
And this is exhibit 631, and it would be. The actual book itself is 579.
Correct.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have another bag that I've shown to counsel for his examination that I'd like to have marked as 575 for identification purposes. It's a brown bag with the number, #302 inches at the top.
All right.
I'm going to hand you. Oh, wait. I need to show these to counsel. While we're doing this, if you would simply look at the exhibit 575, it might save some time. I guess I've already showed it to him. Okay.
Okay.
Now, before we start talking about 575 for a moment, I want to go back. I gave you some photographs, correct?
Correct.
And there's a photograph that shows the exhibit 570 through 574, correct?
Correct.
And what exhibit number is that?
65.
And with regard to that particular photograph, is that an accurate depiction of where those items were located at the time that you seized them?
Yes.
On November 18.
Yes.
Move that photograph, People's 65, be admitted into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Okay. Now let's deal with that bag that I gave you, which is 575. All right. Do you recognize the bag?
Yes.
And do you recognize the contents inside the bag?
Yes.
And with regard to that particular item, where was it the first time that you saw it?
It was within a stack of books and magazines located on the edge of the jacuzzi tub.
And were you the one responsible for seizing it and booking it into evidence?
Yes.
Now, with regard to the exhibit 575, Your Honor, which I seek to admit into evidence at this time.
All right.
Now, there's a photograph in front of you. It's marked as People's 64 for identification.
That's correct.
I better look at that. That didn't quite look like the right one. Have I asked you about this one here?
No.
Okay. This is the one. All right. I misspoke myself. Not for the first time today. People's 62 for identification. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And is it an accurate depiction of what it purports to represent?
Yes.
I'd move that 62 be admitted into evidence, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
Now, with regard to the exhibit, People's 62, do you see in that exhibit the location where you found the item 575?
Yes.
Okay. Could you take that little magic marker you've got up there again and put a little line to just the general area, and then put a 575 on it?
Okay.
The next exhibit, Your Honor, has been marked as People's 580 for identification. It's a clear plastic bag, has number 306 marked on it, and it appears to contain a binder. I've shown it to counsel.
All right.
All right. Do you recognize the item depicted in that photograph? I'm sorry, I'm on automatic pilot here. With regard to the exhibit I just handed you, the item number on that is 580, the plastic bag.
Yes.
All right. Now, could you take the binder out of it, if you would, please, and just examine? There was a brown bag inside of the plastic bag, correct?
Correct.
And that's the brown bag that you use for booking evidence, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, look at the binder, if you would. Just the front cover. All right. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
Where was that item the first time that you saw it?
It was located inside the metal briefcase that was on the edge of the jacuzzi tub.
And you opened the briefcase and withdrew the item.
Yes.
And did you have a photograph of it taken before you had it booked into evidence?
Yes.
To document the location of where you found it?
Yes.
And I believe there's a photograph in front of you.
Correct.
Was that the photograph that was used to document it?
Correct.
What number is that?
It's exhibit number 62.
And is that exhibit 62 an accurate depiction of what it purports to represent?
Yes.
Move that People 62 be admitted into evidence, Your Honor.
I think it already was.
Is that already in?
It's in.
Judge. I don't want to show something that hasn't been admitted, and I want to make sure I've got this down correctly before I do it, so I don't want to get at cross purposes. But as I understand it, People 65 is in evidence, People 64 is in evidence, and People 63 is in evidence.
62 and 65 are in evidence.
64 hasn't been identified.
64 has not been identified.
No.
But 65 and 63 have been and are in evidence.
Number 62 and 65 are in evidence.
Just 62 and 65. 63 and 64 have not been identified.
I'll take care of that. Thank you. With regard to the exhibit in front of you, People 64, do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
It's adult content magazine.
And is that an accurate depiction of what it purports to represent?
Yes.
And what exhibit does that match up to? What's the title on that? First of all, let me do this. Move that it be admitted into evidence, Your Honor.
All right, it's admitted.
Man, I can't find 62.
62 is right here.
Okay, that's fine. When I showed you Exhibit 62 and I asked you to make notations on it as to the location where you found item 575, was that photograph an accurate depiction of what it purports to represent?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor. I believe 62 and 64 should now come into evidence.
64 and 65 are in. And you have not yet identified 63. 62 is in.
Yeah, this is 63. No, Alright, let's try it again. 63. Do you recognize 63?
Yes.
And is that an accurate depiction of what it purports to represent?
Yes.
Move that it be admitted, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Go ahead. We need the individuals and the video. I need the exhibit number on it, of 65. With regard to the exhibit People's number 65, do you recognize that?
Yes.
Is that the location of those items when you seized them?
Yes.
Alright. And with regard to People's 64, do you recognize that?
Yes.
And is that the condition of the magazine at the time that you seized it?
Yes.
Alright. And People's 63, that's the one that was inside of the metal case.
Yes.
And you took it out and put it on the metal case and photo-documented it?
Yes.
Alright. And People's 62 is the one that you indicated the location of the item 575?
Yes.
Alright. Thank you. Alright. I think we can have the lights, Your Honor. I have one last exhibit, Your Honor, that has the number 633 on it. It's a brown paper bag with the number 315 at the top right-hand corner in black. I've shown it to Mr. Sanger, and I'll show it to the witness.
All right.
Have you had a chance to examine it?
Yes.
Do you recognize the item?
Yes.
633.
Yes.
And where were those items when you first saw them?
I located these items. They were inside the master bathroom closet area. They were inside a black Easy-Go suitcase located inside this manila envelope.
And you were responsible for taking those and having them booked into evidence, is that correct?
Yes.
Alright. And are they in the same condition as they were at the time that you seized them on November the 18th?
Yes.
Alright. Move they be admitted, Your Honor.
All right. They're admitted.
And I believe everything is in evidence, and I appreciate the court and clerk's help. I have no further questions.
Detective Shepard, you were assigned. You were detailed to do this particular work. Is that correct?
Correct.
You were not assigned as a co-lead investigator, or anything, on this case. Is that correct?
No.
So a number of detectives and deputies and other personnel were brought to Neverland Ranch on the 18th of November to assist, correct?
Correct.
And do you know the approximate number of people that were there?
No.
Alright, quite a few, though.
Quite a few.
And a number of those people, then, after doing whatever they did, they went on with other assignments and no longer worked on the case. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that was pretty much your situation, is that right?
Correct.
Alright, now, among the materials, let me stop for a second. You went through, as a part of your assignment that day, you went through the master bedroom suite. Is that correct?
Correct.
What other parts of the premises at Neverland did you go through?
I was assigned, after the master suite area, to be the scribe in the office memorabilia room.
Alright, so just as far as what you saw, you don't have tell me what you did, but what you saw of the premises, was the main house. Did you see the whole main house?
No, I was just in the master suite area.
Okay, did you see the library, by any chance?
No.
Okay, and then you went to the office, so you saw the office area, which is a building adjacent to the main house, correct?
Correct.
Did you go to any other structures while you were there?
No.
Alright, now, in the part of the house that you were in, there were books and magazines and photographs and other items that were pretty much stacked up all over the place. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and among the items that were stacked up there were art books. Is that correct?
Correct.
History books.
I'm sure.
Okay, do you remember seeing any black history books, for instance?
I don't recall seeing any.
Okay, did you? And you saw a lot of memorabilia from different kinds of films or things from the Three Stooges, for instance. Is that correct?
I don't recall seeing any.
You don't. Okay, do you recall that there were a number of Three Stooges? When I'm saying memorabilia, a number of things that related to the Three Stooges.
I don't remember seeing anything related to the Three Stooges.
A number of things related to Shirley Temple, right?
I believe so, yes.
A number of things related to Disney and Disney productions, correct?
Correct.
If we could, Your Honor, I'd like to put 65 up. Just coincidentally, right under the thing on the right, is something about the Three Stooges, is it not?
Correct.
None of the things that you seized were contraband, is that correct?
No.
So, in other words, they were lawful for adults to possess.
Correct.
Alright, and all of what you seized was essentially commercially produced, commercially available material, is that right?
Correct.
Alright, now, when we talked about art books, there were a lot of art and photography books that you saw.
Correct.
In the various places. And in the office as well, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Jackson is a performer and an artist, is that correct?
That's correct.
You're aware that his likeness is sought by photographers all over the world. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay. Are you aware that photographers send him their work on a regular basis with the hope that he'll let them photograph him and be his photographer?
I'm not aware of that.
None of the items that you seized, well, let me withdraw that for a second. I think I need to look at what you have up there. So may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Why don't I just take it all?
Oh, okay.
And then I don't have to keep coming back. Now, I think we talked about books and magazines as being commercially available, books and magazines being commercially available. That's also true of all the DVDs.
Correct.
There's something you can buy at the store, correct?
Correct.
And you conducted your part of this search on November 18, 2003, correct?
Yes.
And you don't know what, if any of this, was there in the residence in February and March of 2003, correct?
No.
One of the items that you actually seized was shown in the picture, 65. G244527. And if I may, I'll put that back up here, which is there on that side there. Are you aware that that is a film that was shown on HBO?
At the time that I seized it, I was not. But then I saw it, after the search warrant, on HBO.
All right. May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
All right. Let me ask just a few more questions based on what we were just discussing there. Do you recall the nature of the various art books that you saw? The other ones, not the ones you seized.
Yes.
And what was the nature of the art books that you saw?
One of the books contained children in.
Other than the ones that you seized.
Oh, other than the ones.
Other than the ones, yes.
The one that I do remember seeing in the office I believe it was pictures of Marilyn Monroe.
Okay.
It was a memorabilia book. And there were a lot of books, so I don't remember a whole bunch of them off the top of my head.
All right, well, let's take the office for just a second. The office is in the building right next to the house itself, correct?
Correct.
And the office itself has a room that you walk into. It might be, in some other circumstances, like a reception area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then you go through a door, and the next door, or the next room is what appears to be Mr. Jackson's private or personal office, with a desk and so on. Is that correct?
Correct.
And in those offices, there are mannequins of various sorts, is that right?
That's right.
Some of them somewhat humorous.
Correct.
Depending on your point of view, I suppose. All right. And there are also displays of various movie memorabilia and things from Disney, that sort of thing. Is that correct?
Yes.
As you go through the door into this first area that I called the reception area, for lack of a better term, if you go to the left, there's a hallway. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you go all the way down to the end, there's a bathroom, right?
Correct.
But if you take a left from that hallway, there's an L-shaped room. It might be like a walk-in closet size sort of thing, correct?
Correct.
And that's actually lined with bookcases, and there's hundreds, probably thousands of books in there. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then in Mr. Jackson's office itself, besides chairs and mannequins and memorabilia, there were stacks of books in different places, correct?
Correct.
Now, do you recall seeing items in that office? For instance, a letter from President Bush.
No.
Okay. Do you recall seeing letters or items from various other celebrities or personalities or
No.
people of stature?
I was assigned as a scribe in that area, so I didn't do any of the searching.
So, okay. So you didn't look through the materials that were there?
No.
All right. But did you go in that room, that L-shaped room, and look at some of the books in there?
I saw the L-shaped room. I noticed there was a lot of books and there was a lot of stuff in there.
All right. Did you notice that, I understand you didn't search it per se, but did you notice that there was some books where there were multiple copies of the same book?
No.
Okay. Back in the house, where you were going through the residence, did you focus your entire efforts in the master bathroom?
Yes.
Okay. So you didn't go upstairs?
No.
Did you even walk upstairs to see what was?
I did walk up, but I didn't search.
So when you walked up and you saw upstairs, there was stacks of books and items stacked and lined up and in bookcases around that room. Is that correct?
Stacks of, I don't know if they were books. There was stacks of stuff everywhere.
A lot of movie memorabilia.
Yes.
A lot of art type of books, photography type of books.
Yes.
And downstairs, going back downstairs, did you go into the hallway and the bathroom areas on the right side of the room, if you were to face the big screen television?
Yes, I walked through there.
You walked through. You were not detailed to search that area, though, is that correct?
No.
And did you notice that there was movie memorabilia there?
Yes.
Things from Disney, again Shirley Temple, other regular commercial movies and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Okay. And then on the main floor, in the big room on the main floor with the big screen TV, there were stacks of books on the floor right next to the television. Is that correct?
Yes.
And again, there were books in a bookcase to the right, just before you went into the hallway before going up the stairs, correct?
Yes.
And do you remember a piano there in the big room?
Yes.
The grand piano, the black one.
Yes, I remember that.
And there were some books and things that were sitting on that piano.
There might have been.
Okay, and do you remember, behind the piano, there was an alcove there where there was bookcases with books?
Yes.
Now, did you discern that in different areas, there were different themes, or did all the books seem to be pretty much mixed up?
I didn't search through those books. I spent my time searching in the bathroom.
But you did notice, when you were going through, a tremendous number of books in that whole area on the first floor were photography and art or entertainment kind of books. Is that correct?
I can guess, assume so, yes. I didn't go through all of them.
You didn't go through all of them, but what you saw.
Excuse me, move to strike. Speculation. Use of the word, assume so. Lack of foundation.
Sustained.
Okay.
Stricken.
I don't want you to just assume. I realize you didn't go through every one, but as you picture it in your mind and as you looked at it at the time, did you notice there were a lot of books about movies and art and photography in this area?
Yes.
Alright, and in the master bathroom area that you've described, there were a number of books about art and photography and entertainment.
Yes.
And as I asked before, in addition, mixed in with that in this particular area, there were, from time to time, some other books on other issues, like history or current events, that sort of thing.
There may have been. I don't remember seeing any.
Alright, did you go into the closet? There was a closet off that master bathroom, like a walk-in closet there.
Yes.
And there were some books in there, were there not?
Yes, a lot of books.
Do you remember the subject matter of those books?
No.
Were you assigned to search that area as well?
Yes.
So in that master bathroom, with the books that we saw stacked up here and there, and the closet, those were two areas that you were searching. Were there any other areas that you searched?
No, that's it.
Okay, so, just in those areas, how many books do you think there were?
Hundreds.
And of the hundreds, you seized the ones that you felt were appropriate, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may step down. All right, we'll recess until tomorrow morning, 8:30. See you then. Remember the admonitions.
Your Honor, could the court wait one moment as to one small detail?
Remember, he asked.
Two small details.
All right, go ahead.
Your Honor, apparently the court's in possession of the product of the subpoena duces tecum issued by the people for legal records relating to the 1993 matter in Mr. Feldman's office. I've asked counsel to think about whether they would agree to it being turned over to us for copying, and they're still debating the issue. If, in the event their position is, no, we'd like the court to set a time when we can argue it.
Excuse me, Your Honor. On the subpoena, I think we would like to have time to determine what we want to do with it.
Yes, I'll give you time.
Okay.
How much time do you want?
The court should know, they've known about it for a couple of days already.
Would till Monday be acceptable?
Sure.
Monday would be fine.
You have one other.
Short, I promise. I promised the court and counsel and the clerk that I would find the rest of the exhibit that goes to. There's a photograph we used, which is, I believe, 346, Madam Clerk. And these are the originals. And we were going to substitute. But if you would rather me just have them marked as a separate number, we could do that as well, Your Honor. I just wanted to make sure we have the originals and evidence.
That was 246.
346, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
All right, Mr. Mesereau, is it all right if he substitutes the original of those notes for the copy and we leave the same number on them?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Mesereau.
Your Honor, we had stipulated to make a copy of the cover of the Neverland Valley guestbook,
Yes.
which is Exhibit 5031, and we have made copies. With the court's permission, we'll have them entered in evidence.
All right. Do you want the book itself to remain in evidence, or do you want to substitute the photos of the front for the...
We had agreed to use the front cover.
Okay.
The prosecutor had objected to other pages of numerous writings, so at this point we may use the original further in our case.
Do you want to just leave it in right now and mark those at a different time?
Sure. If we could, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
That's acceptable, Your Honor.
What number would that be?
Would you want that an A and a B?
We'll put it under A under the...
Whatever the court would like.
Under the number that the actual guest book is. We'll put those as an A as they're two separate exhibits.
No, there's just one, Your Honor. That will be A, whatever number that is. Let me just address that. The book was withdrawn so we could make the cover, so we have to bring the book back.
Tomorrow.
That will be fine.
We'll bring the book back.
You have enough witnesses through Friday. There's no problem.
You warned me. I'm not going to get chewed out. We'll make one up if we have to.